Want to know how to spray DNA candy paints for your props and cosplay? Well, let me show you. Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name's Luke, and in this video I'm going to show you how I spray my DNA candy paints for Iron Man or for Galactus. I'm going to be going through the different types of the premix, the concentrated, and then the tinned versions, all so you know how to spray DNA candy paints. Now this video is just going to be talking mostly about the DNA candy paints. This will, I believe, work for other candies. Now every candy is sort of different based on thinners, ratios and base coats and everything. So what I say in this video might not apply for a specific color or brand, but candies are, well, sort of candies. They all react and are made basically the same. So mostly in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to spray these DNA candy paints, which are an automotive company here within Australia. And well, when you get results like this, you can't pass on them. So the first thing we're going to do is talk about which types of candies there are.
Alright, so the first thing we need to discuss before we start doing any of the painting is what type of candy do you purchase? Now there's three different types of these DNA candy paints. They're the base coat range, your premixed, or your concentrated. So the first one that I'll go through is your premixed candy. So the premixed already have an intercoat binder within them, which is basically like a glue for the pigment. So these ones are pretty good for just like smaller projects, which is exactly what I do with those helmets, props and cosplay and that sort of thing. And they're also quite nice and easy to spray with because they've already got the binder into them. There's nothing too difficult with adding it and mixing it and those sorts of things. The only downside to them is they are just a fraction bit more expensive to the concentrated version. But I mean, you have to do less work and it's less ratios and that sort of stuff. So that's sort of why I justify it a lot of the time. And these also come out with some really, really nice colors, and they also spray really simple. For example, this is my Galactus helmet, and it was all sprayed using Mulberry DNA candy paints, which were the premix series. And well, turned out pretty good. So onto the concentrated. Now the concentrated look exactly like this tin. I've never purchased it, but basically what it is it's more dense within the pigment. Because we've got our intercoat binder within the premix version, which is basically our glue to stick down all of our beautiful candy colors, whereas the concentrated doesn't have that intercoat binder within it. You have to put that one separately, meaning you can sort of adjust the ratios and maybe add a little less binder so you can have a bit more pigment, but you'll also get richer color. So basically you can layer it differently because you can affect that ratio differently, and you can do a lot more manipulation. But for small projects and helmets and this sort of stuff, I wouldn't recommend it too much. If you're maybe more of an experienced, like big automotive car painter and that sort of stuff, that concentrated gives you a lot more of that option. Once I get comfortable using like the premixed and the base coat, I'll probably start learning how to use the concentrated because I'll get richer color, meaning things will look 100 times better. But it does come with those risks because you're making your own ratios, it's not set. Things can go wrong and it's a lot of testing involved. So that's really the difference between your main two, which is your premixed and concentrated. So if you're like me doing the helmet, props and cosplay, go premixed. And if you're someone who's maybe all more automotive experience and stuff, maybe try out that concentrated. You'll just need to do a little bit more testing. So on to the last type, which is your base coat. So these ones are more designed for large scale projects and are also super user friendly to paint. They basically spray like a base coat down. Whereas these, you've got to maybe layer it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, those sorts of layers. Whereas you can kind of do this in about 2 to 3, which is on average what you do on a base coat. The colors are also a lot more easier to achieve. It's only thinning it down with the ratio, which I'll talk about in a second, because we've got our 1:1 ratio or a 60-40 and how we can manipulate those things to get better colors. So basically the base coat one is a safe option of the two. You can't really stuff it up. If you add more layers, it's not really going to affect the color in the end, it's just going to make it more dense. Whereas your premixed, I can manipulate this Galactus helmet. I made this go hundreds of layers more than something it probably should have, and that's how I managed to get this dark, richer tone. Whereas if I'd maybe gone 6, 7 layers, it would have been a whole lot lighter. So when you spray it with this only really needs 2 to 3, and with a 2K clear over the top, it turns out amazing. Now I'll leave a little table down the bottom of the pros and cons from each one, just like a little spreadsheet just so you guys can understand it a bit clearer. But if you just want something that's really reliable, really easy to use, go with these two, your premixed and your base coat. But if you want more of that professional look and a bit more of that deeper color, try the concentrated. But I won't be talking about it in this video just because I've never gone. So that's pretty much the summary of picking your candies. The next thing we're going to do is go and talk about our base coats, our ratios, the spraying temperatures, this, that, and 100 other things to make the candies look perfect.
So the first thing we're going to talk about is our base coat. Now, a lot of these candies, some of them will say put over a chrome base coat. That way you get a super nice shiny finish. And once you put a 2K clear over the top, everything goes super shiny and it looks amazing. But some of them will say gloss black. So you get that deep, rich sort of color that then reacts with a shiny, bright candy. And then like a 2K clear over the top. So then you suddenly get like a dark, rich color. Or then if you do some extra bit of testing, you can put them over like a gold or a copper sort of color. The base coat is going to affect exactly how you paint these sorts of things. For example, this is split blood over a black base coat. Whereas this is split blood over a chrome base coat. Totally different finishes. As you can see with this one, it is more of a rich, vibrant red, and it's the exact same color. These are both sprayed at the exact same time with the exact same amount of thinness, the exact same paint on the exact same day, just different base coats. Or then you can get this result, which is split blood, which was the same mixture, the same thin on the same day as both of those ones, but instead of being over black or silver, it's over gold. And for the gold I used on this, it's just a Rust-Oleum rattle can. So that's the really important thing to also know when you start doing these tests, is do some tests on some speed shapes especially. That way you can test it on chrome bases, gold bases, black bases, or just any sort of like, you need a high glossy finish to get the best result from these candies. But do some tests. Daryl from Off Earth 3D said to do it on some gold, so I gave it a shot and well, it worked. The company doesn't say to do it, but you can. So that's the number one thing to know when doing candy paints, is the base coat. The next thing we're going to talk about is, well, how we thin these paints. Before we can start painting absolutely anything, we need to understand what actually is going to be thinned to make this thing thin. So with the candy paints, it's a paint, and it's fairly dense paint. So when we put the thinner into it, it smooths it out, it sprays better, it sprays smoother, it sprays faster, and we can manipulate it a lot better than rather having a thicker, bulky paint. A great example is, at the moment, it's a bit like a thickened cream. We're pouring it into the gun, and when you spray it, well, it doesn't spray the best. But once we add a bit of this and a bit of that, we sort of can get it like milk. It's a nice, smooth or watered down finish, and that sprays a lot better, a lot smoother, and will, well, yield better results. So that's how I think about it. If you thin it, then it goes milk. If you don't thin it, it's like a thickened cream. But what do you thin it with is the question. Now for me, I know I probably shouldn't, but I run it with a 2K universal thinner, or just really any thinner for paint works really, really well. Or the other thing you can run is, there is a designed DNA candy paint thinner that is designed to go with these. I've never purchased it. It probably works better, but you can yield pretty much the exact same results with a thinner of sorts. You're thinning paint, there's thinner is thinner. So maybe it makes a difference, but when I yield results like so, or like my Galactus or Iron Man, I'm not too really fussed. So when you thin the paints, you can either go a thinner like so, which are cheaper and a bit easier to find, or you can go the actual manufacturer DNA candy paint thinner, which you might yield better results. It might be faster to spray, so on and so on. The next thing we'll run through is, well, the ratio. So this is the weirdest thing with doing painting, and always has baffled me, is the chemistry and the science behind it. If you spray something too heavy, it will crackle if the paste isn't correct, or if something hasn't cured fully, it'll crackle, and it'll do this or that. If you spray something at a different PSI to this, it'll all do something different. And if you thin these candies differently to one another, they're a completely different result. So the first example I'll show you is the split blood again. So this is split blood over a black base coat. As you can see up the top here, I've written 60-40, which is the ratio that I sprayed this one at. You'll notice on the tinned versions of the DNA paints, But basically on the back of this tin, it says spray it at 60-40. So that's 60 parts paint, 40 parts thinner. So you kind of get an uneven ratio. So you're getting more of the flaky paint, which when you compare it to the 40 of the thinner, it's an unbalanced mixture, meaning it's going to feel a bit more rough. It's going to be a bit more color vibrant rather than an even match of chemicals, if that makes sense, because I'm sort of just blabbing on as well. But you'll notice that one goes down, and especially on the feel, it feels a bit more rough. It feels a bit more, well, finished, but not super smooth, glossy, shiny finish. Whereas when you do a 1-to-1 ratio, so 1 part paint, 1 part ratio, this thing turns out super smooth. It's even more vibrant. You kind of get more of that depth of color. So there's a massive difference between just doing the ratios, which, to be fair, you wouldn't really think there would be, but there is. So when I spray all my candies, I always go 1-to-1. I liked that balanced ratio, but the good thing to know is if you wanted something to be manipulated a little bit more and you have a little bit more control, go 60-40. I did the same test as well, 1-to-1, 60-40 on a silver base coat to see if there was much of a difference. There isn't much of a difference, it's just the base coat of the helmet itself, which obviously the base coat, like we said, yields a different color to another base coat. So in summary of that, the ratio, if you're spraying these DNA candy paints, I definitely recommend going a 1-to-1 ratio. That way all of the chemicals are balanced out with one another. Whereas you go 60-40, it's an unbalanced ratio. You might feel a little bit more texture through it. It'll be more time consuming to paint, but you'll have more control over which the pigments lay. But if you're doing smaller projects like I do with my props and cosplay, I definitely recommend 1-to-1. Maybe if you're a professional automotive painter and like the 60-40, go the 60-40. Now, the very last thing in doing all of this painting is, well, our clear coat. For me, I love spraying a 2K gloss finish. You can see how shiny and smooth a 2K paint is. They are very harmful, but if you wear the right PPE and have the right ventilation, so on. Now the thing is with these candy paints is, because there is no hardener or binder within these candies, they're gonna look really flat and rubbish. These are some pieces that are a split blood over a gloss black, which will eventually turn to this, but as you can see, they look terrible. They're super flat. They've got no shine to them. They look a bit orange peely. They look a bit flaky. They look really uneven. And this is the designs with candies. They've not had a binder. They've not been smooth. And that's why you have to put a 2K over it to get the perfect finish. Now, this is my Mark 47 Iron Man helmet before the clear coat. You can see I've done a really nice smooth finish over the whole thing. You can see how uniformed it is, and you can see that shine is there, but it's super dull, super flat. You put a 2K clear over it, you can get it mirror finish. And that's the best thing with these DNA candy paints is you don't have to worry about the shine. As long as you get a nice smooth base coat down, all you have to worry about is getting a nice even layer of paint. Then worry about nice even gloss as the clear coat in a separate later stage. Whereas if they combined a clear coat into the candies, you didn't have enough time to maybe get a nice smooth finish on your candy or the color first, before the hardener and the clear sort of set in. That's why it's really good to have both of these things separate. Candies painted once, clears painted next. And especially when I get finishes like this, I'm really happy with them. So hopefully none of this was too confusing. I'm no genius at any of this. I just wanted to share exactly what I had experimented with all of this sort of stuff. So as a recap, you need to think about what colored base coats you want to achieve. Do you want something that's rich in paint, but you've got that nice darker undertone, more like dulled down with a really nice shiny finish? Well, I'd go with a gloss black base coat. If you wanted something maybe a little bit more to do with the colors or manipulating colors depending on your base coat, definitely explore the route of like a gold base coat or a shiny sort of textured colored base coat. I'd stick with gold. I wouldn't go maybe like a blue. You could probably pull off like a bronze or copper. I think that would definitely dull down the paint color in the end, but hey, it's worth a test. But if you want something super mirror finish, super shiny, and super smooth, and well, perfect for Iron Man, go a chrome base coat. The next thing on from that is the thinning. I definitely just would recommend going with a universal 2K thinner, or just a universal thinner These work perfectly fine. I've yielded perfect results every time from using them. But if you wanted to go safe and just go with a branded manufacturer's thinner, go with that. The next thing from that is picking which sort of candies you are. They both take a long time of spraying really nice light coats over and over and over again. I think on average, I do about 5 to 6 coats. I build it up really nice and slow. I don't rush it, because if I rush it, it's going to discolor. We won't get the perfect finish, and then we kind of want to throw the whole thing in the bin. The next thing from that is picking your ratios. I definitely recommend props, cosplay, smaller items, go a 1-to-1 ratio. This is the yield, what you get, and well, it looks amazing. But if you wanted maybe a different sort of finish or a different sort of, texture at the end, I definitely recommend going a 60-40. You can definitely experiment with these. If you want to go 70-30, try that out. But definitely would recommend going the 1-to-1 ratio. It's what I've done on all of these so far. And when you get yields like this or like this, you can't complain. And the last thing is, don't stress when it looks really flat and really terrible. It's got orange peel, it's this, that, and the other. Because once you put a 2K finish over it, or a 1K thinner or a gloss, you can manipulate them with using semi-gloss mattes or clears. All depends on what you feel like. You bring the whole thing to life. So thank you so much, guys, for watching this video. I really hope it helped you break down and sort of understand candies a little bit more. I bet in a year's time, I'll be remaking this exact same video, going through even more tests where I've got hundreds of different colors. But I wanted to share something right now from my experiments, because next week's video will be explaining the perfect Iron Man Mark 47 helmet with all of the amazing, incredible paints from Imperial Surface DNA Candy Paints, all of the electronics and the motorization with the custom PCBs, and our wireless capability, which is insane. So definitely stay tuned for that video next week. But other than that, thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you did understand or had an opinion on something, please leave a comment down below. I want to learn as much as I can about these DNA candy paints, and if you know anything, leave it down below. So other than that, I'll see you next week.